They say owning a home is the American dream, but what they don't tell you is how quickly that dream can turn into a battleground, especially when your land, your peace, and your rights are challenged by people who believe power gives them permission. This story isn't just about a pool or a fence. It's about lines, legal, moral, and personal, and what happens when someone crosses them. It's about a man who saved for years to build a life, only to find himself locked out of it. And it's about how one quiet voice, backed by truth, stood up to a neighborhood empire built on lies. This is the story of how I took back what was mine and helped my whole community reclaim something too. The first time Ethan Ross laid eyes on the property, it felt like stepping into a forgotten dream, one with cracked tiles, sun-bleached lounge chairs, and a silence so heavy it echoed. But at the center of it all, surrounded by overgrown hedges and fallen leaves, was the crown jewel, an Olympic-sized, in-ground stone pool that shimmered under the Oregon sky even in disrepair. Ethan wasn't a man of extravagance. He'd grown up in a cramped second-floor apartment in Spokane, sharing a room with two brothers, and summers with a dozen kids, fighting for space in a public pool that smelled like bleach and Band-Aids. But now, after 15 years of grinding his way through the tech world, first as a junior developer, then team lead, finally cashing out just before his company went public, he finally had enough to chase the one ridiculous dream he'd carried since childhood, a house with a pool of his own. And this wasn't just any pool. The property used to be a boutique resort in the 80s, a quiet, luxury escape tucked between the forest and a sleepy subdivision called Clearwood Estates. Time had worn down the guest rooms and let the gardens grow wild, but the pool remained intact, massive, elegantly framed in hand-cut stone, and still surrounded by original wrought iron fencing. It was perfect, and more importantly, it was his. Before he closed, Ethan did everything right. He hired a real estate attorney, got the title reviewed, surveyed the lot twice. Every document confirmed the same thing: the pool, the quarter-acre of land surrounding it, and the stone patio that bordered the Clearwood HOA were fully within his private property lines. The community had been built around the former resort, but never incorporated it. He bought the place in April 2022 and spent the next year buried in renovations. The house itself needed work: new roof, updated electrical, a furnace that didn't date back to the Cold War. But the pool got Ethan's full attention. $45,000 went into restoration. He hired artisans to repair the stonework, upgraded the heating system, and brought back the original soft glow underwater lighting that turned the pool into a mirror at night. By the summer of 2023, the place looked like a feature in a luxury magazine. But Ethan wasn't the kind of man to keep something beautiful all to himself. It started with Mrs. von Adler, the elderly woman who lived just over the fence. She'd watched his progress from her porch for months. Eventually, shuffling over one day with her walker and the smile, "I used to sneak into that pool when it was abandoned," she'd admitted. "The water helped my arthritis. Felt like magic." Touched, Ethan had offered her access. "Come whenever you like." He'd said, "Just knock." That one kindness snowballed into a handful of casual invites. A weekend barbecue here, a neighborhood kid's birthday there. Ethan didn't mind. He worked long hours from home and liked the idea of the space being appreciated, even if it meant a few extra floaties and juice boxes left behind. But that goodwill soured faster than chlorinated water in the sun. It started with the clipboard. Ethan was skimming leaves from the water one Saturday in January, when he heard the sound an exaggerated throat clear. Behind him stood a man in a crisp polo shirt with a gold Clearwood Estates logo stitched over his heart, loafers with no socks, and a pair of designer sunglasses perched like a threat. "Excuse me," the man said, not waiting for acknowledgement. "We need to discuss your delinquent status." Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry. What, you failed to pay HOA dues for over 2 years?" "That's nearly $4. $800 in back fees." Ethan laughed, assuming it was some bad prank. "I'm not part of your HOA." The man's mouth twisted into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You most certainly are. This pool is listed as a shared community amenity. No, it's not. Ethan's voice stayed calm, but his stomach tightened. I own this property outright. The pool came with the house. It's on private land. That's not possible. This pool's been used by residents for decades. That was before the property was sold. I had it surveyed. Twice. The man who introduced himself as Colin McBride, newly elected HOA president and city council member, ignored that entirely. You have until the end of the month to pay or lose access. Access to my own property. Colin just smiled again and walked away. That was when Ethan knew the dream was about to turn into a battle. By the following week, the situation had gone from ridiculous to deeply concerning. It began with the signs, large, professionally printed, bolted to Ethan's wrought iron pool gate, residents only, HOA identification required for entry. And worse, the lock had been changed. Ethan stood, dumbfounded, in his own backyard, staring at a gate that used to swing freely beneath his touch. Now it was fortified like a fortress against the very man who owned it. Whoever did it had come in the night, clean and quiet. He pulled his phone from his pocket and took photos, close-ups of the sign, the lock, and the gate's base. Then he walked the entire perimeter of the pool fence, finding 3 more identical signs on the north and east sides. One included a printed QR code that linked to the HOA's resident login page. His backyard had been hijacked. Ethan's hands shook, not with rage, but something colder, a sense of violation. Someone had crossed a line, literally and figuratively, and it was time to stop being the good neighbor. He drove straight to the Clearwood HOA office. The office was nothing more than a side room in the community clubhouse. A young receptionist with too much mascara and too little authority sat behind a desk that looked like it came from a high school library. Colin McBride is unavailable, she said firmly, not even bothering to look up after Ethan explained his situation. All property disputes must be submitted in writing. I submitted an email 3 days ago. No response. Email isn't an official channel. We require printed letters or certified mail. You vandalized my property. She blinked. All community amenities fall under the HOA's jurisdiction. This is not a community amenity. It's mine. I have the deed, the survey. I'll bring them here. Again. That will need to be addressed with the board. The president handles all legal concerns. What is this? Ethan asked, his voice no longer calm. A cult. The receptionist leaned back. Sir, if you continue to raise your voice, I'll have to ask you to leave. He left barely and spent the rest of the day drafting a formal cease and desist letter with the help of his attorney, Maya Glenn, a former property rights litigator with a ruthless edge and a fondness for coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Maya reviewed the documents, looked at the photos, and muttered, "They're playing games, sloppy ones." She recommended sending the letter via certified mail, then documenting everything, videos, dates, witnesses. If this escalated, they'd need more than just a paper trail, they'd need a narrative. But the HOA had one of those. 2. That same afternoon, a neighbor forwarded Ethan a community-wide email from the HOA board. It read, "It has come to our attention that an unauthorized individual has been accessing Clearwood's community pool without contributing dues. The board has taken steps to protect our residents and uphold our shared spaces." There it was, defamation in black and white. By Monday, Ethan had security cameras installed and started receiving alerts. A woman jogged by the pool. A man paused and took a photo. Then, the next morning, the worst came. 2 uniformed security guards now stood at his gate. They weren't police, just contracted rent-a-cops with clipboards and mirrored sunglasses. But they were enforcing the signs denying Ethan access to his own pool. "You're trespassing," Ethan told them. "HOA directives." One replied flatly, "Community pool, residents only. I live here. I own this. You're on private property. Then take it up with your HOA." Ethan called the police. 2 officers arrived. The younger one, probably a rookie, snickered as Ethan presented his documents. The older sergeant raised an eyebrow, but didn't do much beyond shrug. "Look, this seems like a civil issue," the sergeant said. "You say it's your land. The HOA says it's theirs. I have the deed," Ethan insisted. The sergeant gave a patronizing smile. "Deeds are often misinterpreted. You'll need to settle this through proper legal channels." "But what about trespassing vandalism?" "Not unless we can confirm ownership right now," the rookie added with a smirk. "I mean, who buys a house with a community pool?" Ethan clenched his jaw. That night, he sat by the locked gate, alone under the stars. His laptop open beside him, forwarding everything to Maya. "This isn't just about a pool," he typed in the email. "This is about people thinking power gives them ownership, about pretending boundaries don't exist." Maya responded 2 minutes later. "Then it's time we remind them. Next move, county records, plus injunction, and we're bringing it public." And with that, Ethan's quiet resistance turned into a legal storm. The hearing room was small, but packed tight chairs, overhead fluorescents, and a mood thick with curiosity and quiet rage. Maya had insisted the meeting with the HOA board be public. As per Clearwood bylaws, the room held residents, local reporters, and at least 3 other homeowners who'd quietly contacted Ethan in the days following his police encounter. The buzz wasn't just about the pool anymore. It was about abuse of power. Maya arrived sharp and composed, dropping a heavy binder onto the conference table with a thud that silenced the room. "We're here to correct an error," she said coolly. "A dangerous, costly, and deliberate error." She passed out certified documents, county deeds, tax parcels, zoning maps, and archived development plans showing how the HOA's neighborhood wrapped around, but never included Ethan's property. She included notarized statements from the previous resort owners, historical aerial photos, and a formal complaint addressed to the county ethics committee. Ethan didn't speak much. He didn't have to. The paper spoke for him. HOA President Cullen McBride, who had previously radiated smug entitlement, now sat flushed and visibly sweating in his navy blazer. He tried to interject, claiming miscommunication, outdated plat maps, but Maya shut him down with a simple slide projected behind her. Survey dated March 2022. Ethan Kessler, sole legal owner of parcel number 407-31622, including pool and perimeter. Then she pulled out the kicker, financial records from the HOA's own ledgers, recently leaked anonymously. For 3 years, Colin had collected pool maintenance fees, totaling over $120,000, despite the HOA not owning a pool. "This," Maya said, "isn't just boundary confusion. It's fraud." The room erupted. Residents whispered, gasped, and pointed. One older man stood and asked loudly, "Where did that money go?" "Colin." No answer. Another woman added, "Why were we told Ethan was trespassing on land he owned?" Still, no answer. The board's attorney leaned over and whispered something to Colin, who stiffened, then stood, in light of recent information. Colin said, voice shaking slightly, "I will be stepping down as president of the Clearwood HOA. Effective immediately." A neighbor in the back muttered, "Good riddance." But Ethan didn't smile. Not yet. He wasn't there for revenge. He was there for resolution. Maya stood again, delivering her final terms. 1. A formal apology to be issued to Ethan and all residents. 2. Full reimbursement of all collected pool fees. 3. $50,000 in damages and legal compensation to Ethan. 4. Installation of a new fence marking Ethan's property line at HOA expense. 5. Public acknowledgement of ownership via the Clearwood Community Newsletter. Or, Maya added, we proceed with a civil lawsuit, press criminal charges, and file a class action suit on behalf of all affected homeowners. The board folded. Within 72 hours, Ethan received confirmation of payment, public apology drafts, and an offer from the board's newly appointed interim president, a retired judge named Eleanor Briggs, to help mediate the fence project personally. But the emotional justice came quietly. It came when the elderly neighbor with arthritis knocked gently on Ethan's back gate a few days later. "I heard you won," she said softly. He smiled. We all did. She handed him a small plant, a sunflower sprout, in a clay pot. I thought it looked nice by the new fence, a new start. And suddenly, Ethan felt everything shift. Not just property lines, but trust. Not just boundaries, but respect. He planted the sunflower that night, just inside the fence, and as he looked over the moonlit pool, calm and glassy in the dark, he finally exhaled. This had never just been about water and stone. It had been about what we protect when no one else will, and what grows back after someone tries to steal it.